You know that feeling in the pit of your stomach, that low-level hum of anxiety about what's coming next. It's that gnawing suspicion that no matter how well you plan, the ground could just drop out from under you at any second. And history suggests you aren't wrong to feel that way. Think about the 2008 financial crisis. One day, the housing market is invincible. The next, the global economy is in freefall. Or remember the sudden, quiet arrival of a pandemic that shut down the entire world in a matter of weeks. Even more recently, look at the tech sector. Engineers with decades of experience, people who thought they had the safest jobs in the world, suddenly finding their access badges deactivated on a random Tuesday morning.
Why do the biggest events in our lives catch us completely off guard? Why is it that the things that truly define our history and our personal lives are the things we never saw coming? The truth is, our sense of safety is often just a mirage. Nassim Nicholas Taleb, in his book The Black Swan, describes this perfectly with a somewhat dark metaphor: the Thanksgiving turkey. Imagine a turkey that is fed every single day by a friendly butcher. For 1,000 days, the turkey's experience confirms that the human race is kind and looking out for its best interests. Every single day of feeding reinforces this sense of security. The turkey's data says, life is good, life is predictable. But then comes the Wednesday before Thanksgiving. In a single afternoon, the turkey undergoes a revision of belief. The event is completely unexpected to the turkey, but it was entirely predictable to the butcher.
We are all, in some way, that turkey. We are blindsided, not because we aren't paying attention, but because we are looking at the world through the wrong lens. We rely on past data to predict the future, in a world where the most important events have no precedent. And that is exactly what we are going to unpack. We're going to look at why we are so bad at predicting the future, and how these rare, high-impact events, these black swans, are actually the dominant force in our lives. In the next section, we're going to dive deeper into exactly what qualifies as a black swan, and why our brains are hardwired to ignore them until it's too late.
Welcome to The Last Read, Books for Your Ears, Wisdom for Your Life. Invite them to subscribe now to never miss a life-changing insight. Today, we aren't just summarizing a book, we are dismantling your ability to trust experts. We will reveal why your financial advisor is likely wrong, why history doesn't crawl but jumps, and the secret barbell strategy to survive the chaos. You can find the link to buy the book in the description. That turkey we just talked about, the one who thought life was predictable right up until Thanksgiving afternoon, that turkey is the perfect victim of what Nassim Nicholas Taleb calls a black swan. Now, before we go any further, we need to be very precise about what this term actually means. It's not just a poetic metaphor for bad luck. Taleb gives us 3 distinct attributes that define a black swan event. First, it is an outlier. It lies completely outside the realm of regular expectations, because nothing in the past can convincingly point to its possibility. Think about the rise of the internet or the events of September 11th. If you looked at the data from the day before, you wouldn't see them coming.
Second, it carries an extreme impact. We aren't talking about a rainy day when the forecast said sun. We are talking about events that reshape societies, crash economies, or rewrite history. And third, and this is the one that really messes with our heads, retrospective predictability. In spite of its outlier status, human nature makes us concoct explanations for its occurrence after the fact. We look back and say, oh, well, the signs were all there. It was obvious. This is the narrative fallacy. We convince ourselves that the world is more understandable than it actually is. The problem is, we are hardwired to learn from the past, but in the world of the black swan, the past is a terrible teacher. Taleb argues that we listen to people in suits, financial advisors, economists, political analysts, who claim they can model the future. They use nice, neat bell curves, what Taleb calls Mediocristan. In that world, everything averages out. If you take 1,000 people and add the heaviest person in the world to the sample, the average weight doesn't change much. It's safe. It's predictable.
But we don't live in Mediocristan. We live in Extremistan. In Extremistan, one single observation, one single event can disproportionately impact the total. Imagine adding Bill Gates' net worth to a stadium of 1,000 random people. Suddenly, the average person is a millionaire. The average implies a stability that doesn't exist. Your financial advisor is likely using models built for Mediocristan to manage money in Extremistan. They are betting your safety on the idea that history crawls slowly forward. But as Taleb famously puts it, history and societies do not crawl, they make jumps. They go from fracture to fracture with a few vibrations in between. We ignore these jumps because they scare us. We prefer the illusion of the turkey's farm, consistent, steady, safe, right up until the moment the axe falls. So, if the experts are blind and the data is misleading, who exactly is this man telling us that our entire understanding of risk is wrong? In the next segment, we're going to meet the man behind the theory, a former options trader who made his fortune not by predicting the future, but by betting on the impossible.
Nassim Nicholas Taleb is not your typical academic. In fact, if you called him an academic to his face, he might take it as an insult. He is a man who operates at the strange intersection of mathematics, philosophy, and high-stakes finance, a self-described skeptical empiricist. In The Black Swan, he presents himself as a flâneur, a French term for a lounger, a stroller, someone who wanders the city observing the world with curiosity, but without the desperate rush of a tourist or a businessman. But don't let that relaxed image fool you. Taleb is intellectually combative. He has a visceral disdain for what he calls empty suits, the bankers, economists, and policy experts who wear expensive ties, use complex jargon, and use models that simply do not work in the real world. He despises the platonicity of universities, the tendency to mistake the map for the territory, to focus on pure, clean shapes and theories, while ignoring the messy, jagged reality of life. He argues that these experts are dangerous because they have no skin in the game. If a pilot crashes a plane, he goes down with the ship. But if an economist crashes the global economy with a bad model, he usually gets a tenure promotion or a book deal. And Taleb earned the right to criticize them, not by writing papers, but by putting his money where his mouth is. His authority comes from the trading floor. Specifically, let's look at the events of October 19, 1987, Black Monday. It was the single largest one-day percentage drop in stock market history. The Dow Jones fell over 22%. But Taleb wasn't crying. While the rest of the market was betting on things staying normal, betting on Mediocristan, Taleb had been buying out-of-the-money options. He was betting on the impossible. He was betting on the chaos of Extremistan. When the crash hit, he didn't just survive, he made a fortune. That event gave him what he calls freedom money, the financial independence to sit back, think, and tell the rest of the financial world exactly why they are wrong. He realized that the market wasn't behaving like a bell curve, it was behaving like something much more volatile. So we have a man who made millions by ignoring the experts and betting on a catastrophe that nobody saw coming. But how exactly does this blindness happen? Why are we so convinced that the future will look exactly like the past? Taleb explains this psychological trap with a very specific and slightly dark metaphor. It involves a friendly farmer and a turkey who thinks he has life all figured out. Imagine, if you will, the life of a turkey, specifically a turkey here in the United States. Let's look at the world through his eyes. For 1,000 days, this turkey is fed by a friendly farmer. Every single meal reinforces a very specific belief that the farmer is a benefactor, that the farmer is looking out for the turkey's best interests. If you were a statistician analyzing the turkey's life, the data would look impeccable. Day 1, food and safety. Day 100, food and safety. Day 900, food and safety. As the days go by, the turkey's confidence in the farmer grows. In fact, on day 1000, the turkey's confidence is at an all-time high because he has the most statistical evidence to back it up. He has a 1,000-day track record of benevolence. But then comes day 1001. It is the Wednesday before Thanksgiving. Something happens that the turkey never saw coming, something that completely invalidates the previous 1,000 days of evidence. The turkey is slaughtered. To the turkey, this is a catastrophic, unpredictable event. It is a black swan. But here's the kicker. To the butcher, it wasn't a black swan at all. It was just Wednesday.
Taleb uses this metaphor, adapted from the philosopher Bertrand Russell, to illustrate the fatal flaw in how we view the world, the problem of induction. We use the past to predict the future, assuming that because something hasn't happened yet, it never will. We are all turkeys in some aspect of our lives. We look at a steady paycheck, a rising housing market, or a long period of peace, and we think we are safe. We confuse the absence of evidence with the evidence of absence. Just like the turkey, we feel safest right before the crash. We think a rising stock market is proof of a healthy economy, when in reality, that stability might just be the quiet accumulation of risk, waiting for the butcher. This brings us to the formal definition of a black swan event, the central pillar of Taleb's work. He argues that for an event to qualify, it must satisfy 3 very specific criteria. First, it is an outlier. It lies outside the realm of regular expectations because nothing in the past can convincingly point to its possibility. It catches us purely by surprise. Second, it carries an extreme impact. We aren't talking about a flat tire on your way to work. We are talking about the internet, World War I, the 9/11 attacks, or the 2008 financial crisis. These events reshape the landscape entirely.
And third, and this is perhaps the most damning for human nature, it has retrospective predictability. After the dust settles, we concoct explanations for why it happened. We say things like, the signs were all there, or we should have known. We weave a narrative to make the event seem explainable and predictable, essentially tricking ourselves into thinking we understand the world better than we actually do. So we have these massive, world-altering events that nobody predicts, yet everyone explains away afterward. But why are we so bad at seeing them coming? Taleb argues it is because we are using the wrong map to navigate reality. We assume we are living in a mild, predictable world, a world of averages. But in reality, we have stepped into a much wilder territory, a place where averages are meaningless and one single event can dominate everything. Taleb distinguishes between these 2 very different landscapes, calling them Mediocristan and Extremistan, and understanding which one you are currently standing in is the only way to avoid ending up on the Thanksgiving table.
So, let's unfold this map Taleb is talking about. He divides reality into 2 distinct provinces, 2 totally different worlds that operate under completely different laws of physics. The first world is a place he calls Mediocristan. This is the world of biology, the world of physical constraints. Think of it like this. Imagine you gather 1,000 randomly selected people into a football stadium. You measure their height or their weight, it doesn't matter. Let's say the average weight is around 170 pounds. Now, imagine you add the heaviest human being in history to that sample, someone who weighs, let's say, 3 or 4 times the average. Does the average of the group change? Barely. It might shift by a fraction of a percent, a few ounces. In Mediocristan, the individual doesn't matter. The crowd dominates. You could add the tallest man on Earth to that stadium, and the average height would hardly budge. It is a world of safety, of averages, where no single event can destroy the system. But then we have the second province, the world Taleb calls Extremistan.
Extremistan is the world of the scalable, the world of things that have no physical limits. Wealth, book sales, YouTube views, financial markets. Let's go back to that same football stadium with our 1,000 people. But this time, instead of weighing them, let's look at their net worth. You have a mix of teachers, mechanics, nurses, maybe a few lawyers. The average wealth is, let's say, respectable. Now, Bill Gates walks into the stadium. Suddenly, the average net worth of that group skyrockets to hundreds of millions of dollars per person. In this world, the crowd doesn't matter anymore. One single individual, one single observation accounts for 99.9% of the total wealth. The average has become meaningless. Taleb points out that this is where we get confused. We instinctively think we live in Mediocristan because that is where we evolved. We are used to things like height and calorie consumption. But modern society? Modern society is built almost entirely in Extremistan. Think about your job. If you are a dentist, you live in Mediocristan. You can only fill so many cavities in a day. To make more money, you have to work more hours. There is a cap. You are safe, but you are limited.
But if you are a tech founder or an author like J.K. Rowling, you live in Extremistan. You write the book once, and it can sell 10 million copies just as easily as it sells 10. Your effort creates a product that is scalable. You have the potential for infinite upside, but also the risk of total failure. The danger, Taleb argues, is that we use the mathematics of the dentist to measure the risks of the stock market. We act as if we are in a safe bell curve world where things balance out, when we are actually standing in a minefield where one single event, one black swan, can obliterate everything. It's terrifying when you really think about it. We are walking through a chaotic, explosive world, pretending it's a calm meadow. So why do we do that? Why are we so blind to the chaos? Taleb suggests it's not just stubbornness, it's biology. Our brains actually have a mechanism that forces us to ignore the randomness, a biological need to weave complex, messy facts into simple, logical stories, just to keep us from going insane.
It's what Taleb calls the narrative fallacy, and it's one of the most powerful concepts in the entire book. Here is the problem. We are biologically incapable of looking at a sequence of facts without weaving an explanation into them. We just can't do it. Our brains are designed to be pattern recognition machines. If I tell you, the king died and then the queen died, that's just information. It's dry. It's hard to remember. But if I say, the king died and then the queen died of grief, suddenly you have a story. You have a cause and an effect. It sticks. Taleb argues that we do this because raw information is expensive for our brains to store. It's chaotic. So to save energy, we compress the data. We strip away the randomness and force a logical arrow of relationship onto events. We turn complex history into a clean, simple paperback novel.
And it feels good, doesn't it? Literally, it releases dopamine. Finding a pattern, even a fake one, feels like solving a puzzle. But here is where it gets dangerous. We apply this storytelling addiction to things that are totally random, like the stock market. Taleb gives this perfect example of financial news headlines. You see it every day. The market drops a few points, and the headline reads, "Market drags due to fears of slowing economy." Then, an hour later, the market goes back up. The headline changes to, "Market rallies as investors shrug off fears of slowing economy." It's the same news. Nothing actually changed. The market movement was likely just random noise, traders buying and selling for a million different reasons. But we can't accept noise as an answer. We can't accept that the world is just a chaotic mess of random events. So we invent a reason after the fact. We look in the rear-view mirror where everything looks clear and organized, and we say, "Ah, yes, of course that happened. It was inevitable." This creates a massive illusion of understanding. We think the world is logical. We think the past was predictable, which tricks us into thinking the future is predictable. We convince ourselves we understand the risks, but we're actually just reading a story we wrote ourselves.
And this narrative addiction blinds us to an even bigger problem. Because we are so focused on the story of what did happen, the success stories, the survivors, the visible events, we completely ignore the vast, silent graveyard of what didn't happen. We see the millionaire who claims hard work made him rich, but we don't see the thousands of others who worked just as hard and went broke. We are looking at a distorted map.
And that distortion leads us directly to one of the most sobering concepts in the entire book. Taleb calls it silent evidence. It's the idea that for every success story we see, there is a vast invisible silence where the failures should be, but aren't. We only see the survivors, so we assume survival is the norm. Taleb illustrates this with a classic story from antiquity about a man named Diogenes of Melos. Diogenes is shown a collection of painted tablets depicting worshippers who prayed to the gods and then survived terrible shipwrecks. The person showing him the pictures implies that this is proof that prayer saves lives. But Diogenes, being a skeptic, asks a simple, devastating question. Where are the pictures of those who prayed, then drowned? They aren't there. The dead don't paint tablets. They are silent evidence.
And we make this exact same mistake today, constantly, especially in business. Think about the graveyard of failed startups. We look at a wildly successful billionaire, someone like a Steve Jobs or a Jeff Bezos, and we analyze them. We write biographies about their habits. We say, look, they were persistent, they took risks, they were optimistic, they woke up at 4 a.m. So we conclude that persistence, risk-taking, and waking up early are the causes of success. But we are ignoring the cemetery. If we could look at the graveyard of failed companies, the thousands of startups that went to zero, we would find it is full of people who were just as persistent, just as willing to take risks, and who woke up just as early. They had the exact same traits as the winners.
The only difference is that they got hit by a black swan, some random, silent event that took them out. We don't see the bullets that hit the others, we only see the few who dodged them. This creates a dangerous distortion in how we view risk. Because the failures are silent, the world looks much safer and more logical than it actually is. We think, if I just work hard, I'll make it, because we never see the hard workers who didn't make it. We are navigating the world using a map that only shows the safe harbors, while scrubbing out all the shipwrecks. And this reliance on a clean map, a map that ignores the messy, chaotic reality of silent failure, leads us into the next major trap. We start to treat the real world as if it were a structured game, something with clear rules and calculated odds, like a casino. But as we're about to see, real life is not a casino.
This brings us to one of Taleb's most biting critiques, something he calls the ludic fallacy. Ludic comes from the Latin word ludus, which means play or games, and this concept hits at the core of why we are so bad at handling risk. When we think about probability, our minds instinctively go to a casino. We think of rolling dice, spinning a roulette wheel, or playing blackjack. In a casino, the risks are known. They are calculated. We know a die has exactly 6 sides. We know there are 52 cards in a deck. If you play long enough, the math tells you exactly what will happen. It is a sterilized, controlled environment. Taleb argues that this is where we get into trouble, because we try to map this casino logic onto the real world. Economists, bankers, and the people managing your 401k love to use what Taleb calls casino math. They use these sophisticated models, usually based on the bell curve, to predict the stock market or the global economy. They treat the world as if it were a game of blackjack, where the rules are fixed and the odds are visible.
But real life is not a game. It doesn't have a rule book. Taleb illustrates this with a fantastic story about a major casino in Las Vegas. This casino spent millions of dollars on high-tech surveillance systems.
They had complex mathematical models to catch card counters and track whales, the high rollers who might get lucky and bankrupt the house. They had the game risks completely locked down. But do you know what actually caused the casino to lose the most money? It wasn't the gamblers. It was the stuff that wasn't in the math models. First, they lost around $100 million when their star performer, part of a Siegfried and Roy-style act, was maimed by a tiger during a show. The show was canceled and the losses were massive. Then, they almost lost their gambling license, not because of bad luck at the tables, but because a disgruntled employee simply forgot to file a mandatory tax form with the IRS for years. Then, the casino owner's daughter was kidnapped, and he had to dip into the casino's cash reserves to pay the ransom.
None of these events were on the bell curve. You can't calculate the probability of tiger attack or kidnapping using casino math. These were real-world, messy, chaotic events. And that is the ludic fallacy. We are using a map of a game to navigate the territory of real life. In a game, if someone cheats or breaks the rules, the pit boss kicks them out. But in the real world, the stock market cannot kick out a pandemic. It cannot kick out a war. It cannot kick out a financial crisis. These things don't follow the rules, yet they define the outcome. So, if our maps are wrong, if the world is not a structured game, but a wild, chaotic jungle, and if we cannot predict the next tiger attack or the next market crash, are we just helpless? Do we just sit around and wait for the Black Swan to take us out? Taleb says no. In fact, he says there is a very specific way to structure your life and your money so that you don't just survive the chaos, you might actually benefit from it. But it requires doing the exact opposite of what most financial advisors tell you to do.
He says we need to adopt what he calls the barbell strategy. Imagine a barbell at the gym. You know, the long metal bar you use for deadlifts or bench presses. It has heavy weights on the far left, heavy weights on the far right, and absolutely nothing in the middle. Taleb says this is exactly how you should treat your exposure to risk. You want to be at the extremes, never in the middle. So on one end of the barbell, you play it incredibly safe. Taleb suggests keeping about 85 to 90% of your assets in the most boring, secure instruments imaginable. We're talking treasury bills, hard cash, stuff that doesn't fluctuate. You are hyper-conservative. You are essentially bulletproof against a market crash. If the stock market drops 50% tomorrow, your lifestyle doesn't change because 90% of your money is sitting in a vault. But then, there is the other end of the barbell.
With that remaining 10 or 15%, you go wild. You become hyper-aggressive. You use this small portion of your money to make speculative bets with unlimited upside. Think venture capital, angel investing, or maybe buying very cheap out-of-the-money options that could pay out 10 to 1 or 100 to 1 if a Black Swan event happens. If those risky bets go to zero, who cares? You only lost 10%. You can recover from that. But if one of them hits, you catch a positive Black Swan, and the payoff is massive. The key here is avoiding the middle. Taleb argues that the middle is the most dangerous place to be. This is where you find medium risk investments, like standard blue chip stocks or corporate bonds, or relying on a steady salary from a mid-level corporate job. The problem with the middle is that the risk of ruin is hidden. It looks stable, it feels safe, but it's actually susceptible to a Black Swan. A safe blue chip stock can go to zero in a scandal. A stable corporate job can vanish in a merger. You are risking total ruin for a mediocre reward. So the barbell strategy isn't just about money, it's a lifestyle.
Don't be a middle manager with a medium salary and medium job security. Be a boring accountant 9 to 5 and a rock star on the weekends. Be hyper safe in your career and hyper risky in your creative hobbies. Be a librarian who trades crypto or a government bureaucrat who writes radical philosophy. The goal is to stop trying to predict the Black Swan You can't. Instead, you position yourself so that if a negative black swan hits, you survive because of your safety bucket. But if a positive black swan hits, you are open to catching the windfall. You are no longer a turkey waiting for Thanksgiving. You are robust to failure and open to wild success. But Taleb takes this one step further. He says being robust, just surviving, isn't enough. He believes there are things in this world that don't just survive chaos, they actually feed on it. They get stronger when things break. And that is the ultimate goal. Not just to withstand the black swan, but to become something entirely different, something he calls anti-fragile. And that is exactly where we will wrap up this journey, in the final episode.
Because here is the truth. Survival is not enough. Being robust just means you stay the same. A rock is robust. If you drop a rock, it doesn't break. But it also doesn't get any better. It just sits there. Taleb argues that we should aim for something higher. He uses a beautiful metaphor to explain this. He says, wind extinguishes a candle and energizes fire. You want to be the fire and wish for the wind. This is the concept of anti-fragility. The anti-fragile is not just resilient, it is something that actually gains from disorder. It gets stronger when you attack it. Think of your own muscles. They only grow because you stress them. You tear them down slightly at the gym, and they come back stronger. That is how you beat the black swan. You stop fearing the chaos, and you start positioning yourself to benefit from it. You stop trying to predict the future, and instead, you build a life that thrives no matter what the future throws at you. If you are fragile, you should be afraid of the dark. But if you are anti-fragile, the dark is where you find the opportunities that no one else can see. So, as we close the book on the Black Swan, remember this final lesson. The goal is not to eliminate fear, it is to eliminate fragility.
You don't have to be a turkey. You don't have to wait for the butcher. You can step out of the farm and into the wild. If you want to learn exactly how to build that kind of life, how to design systems, careers, and portfolios that literally gain from disorder, then you are going to want to stick around. Make sure you are subscribed to The Last Read, because in our next episode, we are starting a brand new series on Taleb's follow-up masterpiece, Anti-Fragile. If you haven't read The Black Swan yet, there is a link in the description to pick up a copy. It is a dense, difficult, and absolutely necessary book. Until then, don't be the candle, be the fire.